starting in the field to the distillation and perfect aging. Creating the perfect spirit is hard work. Selecting it? That's easy at Happy Harry's Bottle Shops.
Please use our products in moderation.
In this job, you take your eye off it for 1 second. People can die.
Don't think, just do it.
I'm a firefighter, and I will always be a firefighter.
Did a great thing today.
It's all because of you.
Weekdays at 7 p.m. and 12:05 a.m. You're watching WDAY Extra. Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something. Is
Hot Mic. Hot Mic. On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo. Dom Izzo.
Good Wednesday morning. This is I'm Going Crazy edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com. Happy Hump Day to all those that celebrate. Why I say that has nothing to do with the weather. It is what it is. We got another fun story from home to start, much like we did yesterday. I got home yesterday. I picked up the Jackman from his daycare, and I'm on dinner patrol last night, which is always a scary proposition. We had burgers last night. Jackman ate them. And I had to go out last night, and I was, changing out of the quote unquote the dress clothes. It's a lot different than what it used to be every night. And I went to Shields the other day. And the only reason I shout them out, former sponsor of our show, and hopefully will be again. And I bought a new red Nike hoodie that I really liked. And as I'm getting ready, I hadn't taken the tags off it yet, nothing. I just bought it. And I'm getting ready to put it on. I'm like, wait a minute. I just bought a red Nike or red hoodie. I bought a red Under Armour hoodie literally maybe 2 months ago. I think from the same place. And the Jackman is want to do something. Well, Dad, you could have two red ones. And he's exactly right. I could, buddy, but I don't need two red ones. So, again, another reason I'm losing my mind here at only 44. I thought it would happen a lot later from now, but evidently not the case. So, take that for the grain of salt for all sports opinions or anything else coming our way for the next 2 hours as we start our show. It's great to be with everyone here on this Wednesday. Appreciate you either listening, watching, however you take in our show. As usual, we have a fun lineup today. We're switching things up that we usually do. Dick Bremer is going to join us a little bit earlier today. He's in Boston. The Twins played a mind-numbing game last night, which we'll show you if you, even if you did see it, how that game finished against the Red Sox here in just a second. We've got a bunch of Bison news to get to. Of course, if you saw our show yesterday as we were on the air, it broke that Grant Nelson had formally declared for the NBA draft. You'll hear from Bison men's basketball coach David Richman coming up in our show on his reaction to the news and where things go from here, not only for Grant, but for the Bison basketball team, how they prepare for this, knowing the door is still open for him to return. We'll get into that in just a little bit. We are 8 days out now from the NFL draft. The trade rumors are starting to heat up, including on one Trey Lance. Some news there that we'll share coming up on our show. And speaking of Bison football, There is another player in the transfer portal that broke yesterday afternoon in defensive end, and 6-year senior Tony Pierce has left the team. We'll get into that here in just a little bit. So a lot to parse through, and it is the Minnesota trifecta today. You know what? It's okay that the weather is lousy outside. It's a perfect day to be inside because everybody's playing tonight. Not necessarily ideal. Certainly the times are not, which we have time to get into that. I want to later in the show because I harped on it yesterday. I got a little more clarity on that last night that I'd like to share. We got the Twins at 6. We got the Wild at 8:30, and we got the Wolves at 9. So caffeine it up, whatever you need to do, because I can tell you none of those games are starting outside of the Twins. None of those games are starting at the times I just told you. What they have in the TV business is called the slide, and we'll get into that coming up later on in the show. But we got the Minnesota trifecta coming up today. We begin, as I mentioned, with those Twins playing opening game in Boston last night. Chris Sale was amazing. Twins couldn't do anything against him. He leaves the game, and here we go. Max Kepler connects. Solo home run to right, and right off the hop, Twins now have a 2-1 lead in this game. Kepler with his second home run of the season. Things went to hell in a handbasket at the bottom of the 8th inning here because Christian Vasquez is called for catcher's interference at a play here at the plate, which you can clearly see his glove gets in the way in the at-bat and allows the runner to get on base. Reese McGuire was the man up at the plate. I don't know why even Rocco was talking about it because you'll see right there, McGuire's bat hits Vasquez's glove, the former Red Sox, who got a nice ovation from the Boston crowd, and you could see McGuire was pointing back at Vasquez. That's why he didn't burst it out of the box, because he knew something was up there. Anyway, that allows the tying run to score. But the Twins take the lead in the top of the 10th as they get a couple of runs to come in. They scratched it out on a sac fly from Byron Buxton and an RBI ground out from Jose Miranda. But then things got crazy in the bottom of the 10th. Alex Verdugo goes the opposite way for a 2-run single. That tied it up at 4 against Giovanni Moran. And then, well, that was McGuire who hit. This is Verdugo who gets the, now we think, watching it live, potentially that's a foul ball. Instead, though, it finds the one possible spot at Fenway Park where that's just barely a fair ball because Fenway has just a kooky way down the right field line. And that's how the Twins lose the ball game, as Boston wins it 5-4 in 10 innings. And that's a brutal loss, honestly. The Twins had grabbed the lead in the top of the 10th, and then Moran couldn't get anybody out in the bottom half. There are questions today about why Duran didn't stay in. I've got plenty of them. He only threw 19 pitches in the 9th inning. I'm not quite sure why he couldn't pitch the 10th, especially after the Twins grabbed the lead in the top half. That's the guy you want in the bottom half of the inning. But it was a sloppy game for Minnesota last night, honestly. They committed 2 errors. They struck out 16 times last night against Red Sox pitching. Sale accounted for 11 of them. The catcher's interference, that was a sloppy ball game. And now they've lost 3 games in a row. Sonny Gray, 5 innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, a run, and 7 strikeouts as the Twins fall to 10-7 on the season. And as you see the graphic there, now they've lost 3 consecutive games. They still maintain a lead in the American League Central by a game and a half over Cleveland, as the rest of the division mires in mediocrity, and we could be very well down this entire road for the whole summer. But that was a game that you lost that one. That one got away from you. You had a chance there, and it frittered away from you. they'll send Joe Ryan to the mound today for Game 2 of this set with Boston as they play the 6th of their 7 games on the road. And then they'll come home for the next week and a half as you see the pitching matchup coming up for tonight. Joe Ryan against former Cleveland ace, Cy Young winner Corey Kluber, who has been hampered by injuries over the last 3 years. But in his prime, boy, he was, and Twins fans know, he was dynamite in Cleveland. He'll start for the Red Sox tonight. For a Boston team that many probably didn't have high hopes on, Red Sox are at 9-9 now after they've put together a mini winning streak here and winning last night's game. I mentioned we'll have Dick Bremer coming up here in just a little bit to reflect on last night and look ahead to tonight's game. Before we wrap our opening segment, I mentioned the Bison have had another football player enter the NCAA transfer portal. For those that aren't aware, there are now 2 windows. We obviously experienced the first that was right after the regular season that began and it was open for 45 days. The second portal window opened on Saturday, and that goes until April 30th, which times out for when college teams have their spring practices. On Monday alone, in the FBS, we had 118 guys head into the transfer portal of FBS players on Monday. So it would be naive of me, Bison fans, the coaching staff, to assume that everybody was going to stay. UND has had already, I believe, 4 players head into the portal since they wrapped up spring ball, which was a week ago Saturday. The latest for NDSU is a senior, a guy that has played a lot of football, in Tony Pierce, who this is the strange part about it, folks. Pierce practiced yesterday with the Bison. He was out on the field and then made his intentions known to the coaching staff that he was entering the portal. Guy that had graduated, was coming back for a 6-year of eligibility, had the bonus year because of COVID, and was going to be a starter, was counted on that role for the upcoming 2023 season at defensive end. Last year was held to just a sack and a half, missed a couple of games because of injury. I'm not going to sit here and get on a guy after now he's gone, but I will tell you that his performance last year, I think, was underwhelming. I think he had a better junior season. He did statistically, and I think his impact on the field was met more. Where you look at where Tony was in his freshman season, his redshirt freshman season in 2019, he was an impact guy as a young guy on the defense, thinking this guy is going to be a disruptor up front. And it didn't materialize. The COVID year of 2020, I think Matt Entz told me a handful of times on camera that Tony underperformed and was hoping for bigger and better out of him in 2021. I think he delivered, especially with Spencer Wagee being out. He had a big sack you saw there in the FCS semifinal game against James Madison. But this season finished with 22 tackles, 2 for loss, a sack and a half. He had his first career fumble recovery you saw there against North Carolina A&T early on in this season. And it's more of a loss of depth, obviously, at the defensive end spot, where the Bison are green up there with the loss of Spencer Wagee. That was going to be a spot where the Bison were going to have some youth there, no doubt. Pierce would have counteracted that, and now he has moved on. From what I visited with Matt Entz about this yesterday afternoon, I was told this was more of a mutual decision than anything. I don't think either party is upset at the other. I think there's frustration always when a player leaves. But, again, this is the age we are in. I made a graphic here before we came on air. I want to show this, but of reflecting of the players that have left since the start of last football season. So September of 2022. And there are other headliners, Phoenix Sproles and Kobe Johnson, Courtney Eubanks, Marquise Siegel, Jalen Bussey. Those will grab your attention. Dom Ganella, guy that's played a lot of football. A DJ Hart, who left after he was named the Special Teams Player of the Week. Still kind of, you shake your head over that. And there's some other guys that have not played a lot, younger guys, offensive linemen you see on there, whether it be a Ben Goldie from Rapid City, a Sam Henry from Eden Prairie that they had high hopes from, a Max Rader from Wisconsin who's now signed at the University of Wisconsin. Dom Jones is another high-profile guy. Those are talented players, no doubt about it. And I had a Bison fan ask me on Twitter yesterday, well, how many players has South Dakota State lost? And I just want to get to this quick, and I know we got to go. Bison fans, stop doing that. Stop comparing what SDSU. The Jacks have lost a couple guys. They have. They've had a couple wide receivers go in the portal over the last couple of days. But it's apples to oranges right now. SDSU just got to the mountaintop of FCS football, as much as Bison fans don't want to even acknowledge that. They are there. Eventually, the Vultures are going to circle and get their players. And I don't know if it's even that. More than half of these guys haven't found a spot to play. Kobe Johnson, Dom Jones, Jalen Bussey. They, as we sit here on April 19th, don't have a spot to play. Marquise Siegel is the only one that I would sit there and say has improved his position, that he's at Kansas State. Dom Ganella walked on at the University of South Florida. They won 2 football games last year. Eubanks is at Coastal Carolina. Okay, location-wise, he probably improved himself. Football-wise, I think they are a emerging FBS team. So I could put maybe an asterisk next to Eubanks. DJ Hart went to Northern Iowa. He's not there right now. Right? So I understand there's frustration of guys leaving. Rader, you could say, maybe improved himself. But he's a Wisconsin kid. He wanted to go back home, what I was told. We'll table this for now, but we'll get back into it later on in the show, because I think still the comparison is not a fair one for Bison fans to go down that road. We're due for a break. We come back. Dick Bremer joins us early on the show. We'll visit with him as the Twins get set for a matchup with the Red Sox. We'll do that when Hot Mike returns right after this on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
On the next Tamron Hall, she's presided over some of the most colorful characters in the courtroom, from the unforgettable feuds to the post-trial zingers that live on in memes. Judge Marilyn Milian on gaveling out of the People's Court after 26 seasons. Then William Stanford Davis is the hilarious janitor who steals the scenes on Abbott Elementary. If you think you love his character, just wait until you hear his backstory. Plus, SNL alum Shashir Zameda joins the Tam fam. Next Tamron Hall.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on WDAY, WDAZ.
My whole life, I've struggled with lower back pain. I wasn't able to stand, play golf, or sleep comfortably. I've tried cortisone shots, but it wasn't that effective. I saw an ad for the Center for Pain Medicine, went in, talked to Dr. Ghazi, and he recommended SI joint fusion. The surgery was minimally invasive. I walked out pain-free. I'm out golfing, and it's great to have my life back.
Touchmark at Harwood Groves is located in South Fargo, North Dakota, on a 14-acre garden-like setting. And we have everything from cottages to apartments, a health club, activities. We tend to take groups of residents out downtown, which is just a very vibrant and growing community. The easiest way I can say it is we are going to treat our residents the way that we would treat our best friends. That's what it feels like. And that's what I love about my job. It feels like a family.
You got lots of money over here.
I want to go for it.
So do I. Let's do it. They have decided to go for it.
You bet your life.
Hey, give me the money. More money. $5,000.
Weekdays at 3:30 p.m.
Somebody has to stand up for victims. It took a lot of courage to get up on that stand.
I promise you, I'll protect you.
Weekdays at 12 p.m.
911, what is your emergency?
Every day we encounter people who are having the worst day of their entire lives.
Does it get any easier?
Nope.
It takes a certain kind of person to run towards danger rather than run away from it.
Why is this job so important to you?
Growing up, I never saw any heroes who looked like me.
And that's what a hero looks like.
Help is on the way.
Sundays at 8 p.m.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in North Dakota. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the NDHSAA.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. He asked all his therapists to help him undertake some of the house chores. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey.
A drive to left field. He has done it again. And a leaping catch on the warning track. Got it. And the Twins complete the sweep.
Don't adjust your dial here or watch. We are a little bit early with Dick Bremer as he joins us live from Boston on this Wednesday. The Twins get set for the second of 3 games tonight with the Red Sox a little after 6 o'clock, part of the Minnesota trifecta. Everybody playing tonight with the Timberwolves and the Wild coming up later. We were just visiting off air that you and the team arrived as the stragglers were still finishing the Boston Marathon on Monday, which is one of my favorite sporting events of the year. But you got a neat perspective on when you guys got in on Monday.
Yeah. And I use that word stragglers, and as soon as I said that, I thought, who am I to call them stragglers when I'd be lucky to do the 0.2 miles rather than the 26.2. But, yeah, we got here with kind of an odd deal. Last year we were here and played in the morning game on Monday, but this year we were in New York, and hotel rooms are just ridiculously difficult to get. So we actually stayed in New York after the game on Sunday and flew in here on Monday afternoon. And when I got my suitcase, the finish line on Boylston Street is just a couple blocks from our hotel. So I went down there, and it was really, really cool to see 5 hours or so after the winner came across the finish line. There were still hundreds of people cheering complete strangers across the finish line who, you know, had vowed that they were going to finish the race regardless of whether the sun was still shining or not. But it was really a cool experience to see people encourage one another like that.
That's one of the best parts of marathons, all that kind of neat stuff. I always appreciate that. It's good timing we have you on after a, I guess, bizarre finish of a baseball game last night. I think most Twins fans wake up today, and I'm sure we'll ask, and maybe I've already tweeted you, and I'm sure I've already out there on social media, why Duran didn't pitch the 10th. He had 19 pitches in the 9th. Were you surprised that Rocco didn't put him, especially after the Twins got the lead, didn't put him back out there for the 10th inning?
Well, I think early in the season in particular, they're still looking at guys like him being one-inning guys. Then the question is, do you pitch him in the 9th inning in a tie game, or do you wait until you have the lead? And that's always a mental wrestling match for a manager. What do you do? Now, it depends, too, on who's coming up. Is it the better Boston hitters and all that? I found it really interesting that as things were unfolding or falling apart, whichever you prefer, in the 10th inning, the Twins warmed up Pagan in the event there were some right-handed batters coming up, but never brought him into the game. And I don't know that bodes particularly well for Emilio Pagan if they weren't going to use him in that situation. I mean, it's not like, the Twins had, their closer out there, Duran or Eddie Guardado or somebody like that. They had Giovanni Moran out there, and we know he's just doesn't have command sometimes, and they let him try to pitch through it. He got the incredible double play grounder and looked like he might get out of it. And then of all things, I mean, we've said this on this show before, you come to Fenway, and if you're going to play 3-4 games, you're going to see something that could only happen at Fenway, and that's exactly how the game ended.
I thought, though, for a game last night, they struck out, the Twins did 16 times. They made a couple of errors. The catcher's interference in the 8th that allowed that inning to continue. It was a sloppy game. They still had a great chance to win, but it was a sloppy baseball game for them all around.
It was, and you're a play-by-play guy, so you too, I'm sure, carry a rule book with you every time you do a game. And, usually I'll dig it out of my bag maybe once a year, twice a year, but I had to dig it out yesterday because I wasn't sure about the catcher's interference and whether you can decline that. And then you've got, Donovan Solano, who's done fine over there, but he's not a first baseman. And if he stays on the bag and gets the out, then, the Red Sox take the catcher's interference. There's runners at first and second instead of first and third. That was a big play. It's just, regardless of how much baseball you've watched, you always you have to open your eyes and ears to the fact that you're going to see or hear something you've never seen or heard before. And that was the case on at least a couple of occasions last night.
On the live hit of Verdugo in the bottom of the 10th, are you thinking as you see it off the bat that's a foul ball, or just knowing Fenway that something weird's going to happen?
Well, it's hit into a kind of a blind spot from where our press box is. We can see the pole, but we can't see the low wall. And it's, as I think most baseball fans know, it's a really sharp angle deeper into right field. And so when I saw it hit the wall, I think I even called it a foul ball, because I couldn't see from where we were sitting. I could not see the yellow line on the wall, separating fair from foul. And of course, it looked like it hit right on the yellow line. And as I said on the air, that's like the foul pole. It's in fair territory. And, people who have watched hundreds, if not thousands of games at Fenway Park said that they've never seen that happen before at that ballpark.
And honestly, I think even everybody was kind of, I watched the Nesson broadcast. They were in the same boat with you. They thought, oh, it's foul. And then wait a minute. No, it's a fair ball. And the game is over. It's just a fluky way to end a game that they should have won last night.
And there are going to be others like that too. There are going to be, bullpen implosions. It's just, it's such a fascinating place to play and watch Major League Baseball. And I said, I think early in the broadcast last night, one of the joys in coming here is, we're going to see something that can only happen here. And I had no idea it was going to end up finishing the first ball game.
Twins fans are still probably picking up their collective jaws from the ground, Dick, after the news on Monday of Pablo Lopez getting the richest contract for a pitcher in team history at 4 years and $73.5 million. He's been what you and I have talked about since the trade went down with the Marlins for Luis Ariz, an ace. It's refreshing to see, his age and the Twins paying for premium starting pitching.
And I think as we've talked already this year, the Twins have a pretty solid rotation. That's certainly been the case, right? But one thing that they did not have yet, and they were hoping that somebody would emerge as a number one, and the guy's had 4 starts, and he sure looks like a number one starting pitcher, a guy you can put up there maybe in a playoff matchup against Garrett Cole. They faced each other on Sunday, and Cole was better, but Lopez was awfully good. So it really is, and the Twins haven't announced it yet, so I've got no business talking about it. He's got to pass a physical, and as Carlos Correa would tell you, we got to make sure we pass the physicals before we announce anything. But yeah, it's a step forward for this organization. Sonny Gray was not real good last night, but he battled through it, and he's given up in 22 innings. He's given up 2 runs. That's it.
That's all right.
This rotation really has been wonderful, and eventually I do believe this team is going to start to hit better.
I want to go back to Sunday because that's the game, you're at Yankee Stadium, you have your ace, and he's dueling right with Cole. I mean, that's, as a Twins fan, you've wanted that for so long. You got it. Now you need, obviously, the team to score some runs for him, but that's what you sign up for when you got the Yankees ace going and your guy going. That's what you want.
Right. And then, they scratch across a couple of runs. And, speaking of Fenway Park, the guy hit the home run that would only be a home run at Yankee Stadium. Right. I mean, that's how thin the line can be between winning and losing. Cole looked like he could have pitched 15 innings and not given up anything. That's how good he has been. But, the way things look, the Twins certainly made the right choice when they picked Lopez to be their opening day starter, because if they continue on and get into a postseason situation, and if they can, I think they'd like him to lead the rotation into the postseason.
We got a graphic we'll bring up here before we go to break just to ask you the Twins starting rotation ERA of how good it has been. And this is what they've needed. This is what they've lacked in the past few years. Guys able to pitch in the 6th, in the 7th inning, which has been refreshing through the first 17 games of the season. But that's what they have needed.
And they've got a bullpen that will complement, at least not last night notwithstanding, a bullpen that will complement that. They have ways to measure this now, and they say that the Twins bullpen right now is the hardest throwing bullpen in the major leagues, with guys like Jackson, Lopez, and Duran and people like that. So it really looks like this is going to be a fun team to watch. We do think, at least I do, the bats are going to get going, and then this team could potentially go on a nice roll. But you've got to find a way to win most of your close, low-scoring games, and they've done that. But last night, an example of one that slipped through their fingers.
We'll get an email in before we go to break, because Kenta Maeda is slated to start tomorrow. They skipped his start in New York. Is there any reason for concern beyond that, or is that just to give him some extra rest?
Well, I think setting him back, I don't know that his stuff would necessarily match up against the Yankee lineup and Judge and guys like that. The Red Sox lineup is not nearly what we've seen from Boston's lineup in recent years. So it might be a better matchup. Physically, I don't think there's anything to be concerned about. But unless or until we see him pitch the way he did, a couple of years ago in the shortened season of 2020, Twins got some guys knocking on the door too. Bailey overpitched well again last night, and there's some other guys down there. That Louis Varland probably deserves to be up here already, right? I mean, he gave the Twins a quality start at Yankee Stadium again. So there's some guys knocking on the door. So whether it's Tyler Mahle or Kenta Maeda, these veterans, there's a little bit of pressure on them to, step up and give the Twins competitive starts again, because the Twins, thankfully, have some young guys in the minor leagues who look like they're ready.
We're going to take a break. We come back much more with Dick Bremer, including Rosengate and handling that in the broadcast booth when you're trying to figure out what in the world is going on the field. We'll do that on the other side of the break. We roll on a Wednesday morning. Back with Dick Bremer from Boston right after this.
Healthy Systems USA Spring Sale. Get 2-month program, 1-month price. It's like getting 1 month for free. Buy it for yourself or split it with a friend. Lose up to 1 pound of fat a day.
If you've got that, don't worry about that. Healthy Systems USA.
On the next Tamron Hall, she's presided over some of the most colorful characters in the courtroom, from the unforgettable feuds to the post-trial zingers that live on in memes. Judge Marilyn Milian on gaveling out of the People's Court after 26 seasons. Then William Stanford Davis is the hilarious janitor who steals the scenes on Abbott Elementary. If you think you love his character, just wait until you hear his backstory. Plus, SNL alum Shashir Zameda joins the Tam fam. Next Tamron Hall.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on WDAY, WDAZ. Watch NDSU Spring Football on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Watch the Bison take the field at the Nodec Insurance Football Performance Complex, Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
When you watch First News, you're getting local news from a local team that understands and cares about your community. We're here for you with the most up-to-date news and weather to start your day, because your community is our community.
Love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me dear, tell me you are mine. I'll be yours through all the years, till the end of time. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfilled. For my darling, I love you, and I always will.
Today, 1 in 5 working-age Americans has a mental health condition.
People in all types of jobs and at all levels.
And the key to helping us succeed is a supportive and inclusive workplace.
All of us have a role to play in making that happen.
So what can I do to help?
As a CEO, I can set the tone for supportive culture.
As a manager, I can offer assistance and accommodations.
As a coworker, I can listen and be a source of support to my colleagues.
As someone with a mental health condition, I can ask for what I need to perform my best.
I can offer all employees the supports they need to deliver on the job, for the team
and for the business.
What can I do?
What can I do?
What can I do?
I can remind others
that we all benefit from workplaces that promote good mental health.
Mental health-friendly workplaces are more important than ever.
And all of us have a role to play in promoting them.
Learn more at whatcanyoudocampaign.org.
Healthy Systems USA Spring Sale. Get 2-month program, 1-month price. It's like getting 1 month for free. Buy it for yourself or split it with a friend. Lose up to 1 pound of fat a day.
If you've got that, don't worry about that. Healthy Systems USA.
Back with Dick Bremer here on a Wednesday morning. He joins us each and every Wednesday on Hot Mic. Twins coming up tonight, 6 o'clock against the Boston Red Sox in Game 2 of a 3-game set. Day game tomorrow, and then getaway day as the Twins will be back home for the next 9 days. I don't know how many fans will be able to get down with the weather coming our way on this weekend to see some outdoor baseball. I know it may not be all that great in the Twin Cities either, though, this weekend.
Supposed to be cool on Friday and a chance of, we'll just say precipitation. We don't know yet what form it's going to take, but I got a new parka about a month and a half ago for the cold weather game. So I'll probably be wearing it on Friday.
All right. So let's dive into what happened on Saturday with the Twins game at Yankee Stadium with Yankee pitcher Domingo Germán, who was allowed to stay in the game after the crew chief, James Hoy, tells him that they're investigating his hands for some sort of substance, that he's allowed to stay in the game, which is the crazy part. We'll play the video. You can actually see Hoy telling Germán, you need to wash your hands, which I thought was just crazy. Take us through it from your perspective in the booth. When you get wind of something is up, and because there's no communication, I imagine, right, between down on the field and you guys in the booth of what's going on.
No, and separately, or a little tangential comment about this, it was the perfect example of why announcers have to be on site. Because if we weren't there, we would not have had a clue what was going on. I saw Germán come off. I saw an extended chat with James Hoy coming off the mound after the third inning. Then Hoy went to Aaron Boone, the manager of the Yankees, had an exchange with him, not animated at all, but I knew there was something going on. So now they go back out in the fourth inning, and we've been told all year long, going back to January, umpires are going to crack down on this again. Zero tolerance, right? And ultimately, he goes back out there. The pitcher, Herman, smelled his hand twice on camera, which I still can't understand unless I know pine tar has a very strong scent. I don't know why you would smell your hand if all you had on it was rosin. I didn't see him bring his glove back out to the foul line. Someone else did that. So someone must have been working on his glove to get whatever the residue was out of the glove. I just thought it was a very poorly handled by the umpires. A lot of people on social media said, well, my goodness, if that's zero tolerance, Joe Niekro could still have been pitching after having the Emery board, flipped out of his back pocket. Oh, yeah, you can't have that out here, but we'll just let it go this time. I just thought it was handled very poorly by the umpire.
I don't blame Rocco for going crazy either. I'm like, what are we doing? No. You and I did this 2 years ago when they instituted the rule mid-season about the spider tack and all that they were like. I vividly remember you coming on, like it might have been that day that, okay, we're going to start checking guys coming off the mound. Then what are we doing if we're not going to actually enforce it? That was the problem I had of what happened on Saturday.
And there's so much available information for everybody now. You can go online and find out spin rates. That's the currency, right? Everybody's trying to increase their spin rate. Well, there was a noticeable decrease in the man's spin rate on all his pitches after the third inning when he had to clean up his hands. Well, then he shouldn't have been out there in the first place, right? You've got all the evidence in the world that he was overdoing something, whether it was just too much rosin. Apparently, now for fans who are going to be watching tonight, there'll be 2 rosin bags on the backside of the mound. One is the powdery stuff that, I always used as a kid. I didn't even know it came in other form. They say, pitchers I've talked to, that the other rosin bag, which is in the rock form, is tackier than the powder. I don't understand it. I never used it. But this guy, and apparently a lot of other pitchers do too, use the rosin bag that they have in the dugout. And so why are they, if you're going to allow that, why have the 2 out there behind the mound? Right. Yep. Isn't that the definition of a foreign substance? Because you're allowed to have what's on the mound that they provide for you, and anything other than that is a foreign substance. And in my mind, he should have been, taken out after the third inning. Yeah, that just rubs me the wrong way. Again, if we're going to be consistent about this, it's like with video review, everything with baseball. They made a huge deal about it 2 years ago. And you mentioned just a couple months ago, we're going to enforce. Well, what are we doing if we're not going to do that? You know what I mean? Right. And all you have to do is look at the spin rate, because that's why the pitchers are using this stuff, whether it's legal or not. Rosin, pine tar, spider tack, whatever. They want better grip on the ball. What's interesting to me is we've been blessed so far with really warm weather. We haven't had typical April weather. And back then it was just kind of a wink and a nod because the ball was so cold, the temperatures were so cold, and pitchers would take pine tar out there just so they could direct the ball. Hitters didn't want to be standing up there with, somebody throwing cue balls at them, right? I mean, if you have no idea where the ball's going, but they want to crack down. And here we had, whatever it was, 80 degrees, whatever it was at Yankee Stadium in game time on Saturday, and he was still loading up with an abundance of something. Going back to Thursday, you've seen 40 years of calling baseball. Was that the greatest first inning of Twins baseball you've ever seen on Thursday night at Yankee Stadium? The 9 runs, yes. That it was at Yankee Stadium, yes. That it was, we thought and hoped that it would maybe set the tone for the whole series. Twins won 2, lost 2, so that maybe that didn't happen. But given all the frustration that Twins fans have had at that ballpark, watching in person perhaps, or on TV, listening on the radio, that was a great way to start a 4-game series. But I will tell you this, that I had a brighter inner glow with the comeback win on Friday than I did on the blowout win on Thursday, because the Twins In so many games against the Yankees, whether it's in Minnesota or in New York, they've lost games late because they did not get a big hit or they made an error late in the game. And on Friday, the Twins were the better team in the last 3 innings and stole that one late.
Let me ask you before I let you go, because was that the jump start for Carlos Correa that he needed, those 2 games in New York to actually – I know he'd been injured and been out, and he came back Thursday. He had a couple hits in each of those games to get things going offensively for him?
Yeah, it could be. I mean, we're going to wait and see. He got off to a slow start last year, and last year we had, really cold weather, and we're going to be dealing with some weather issues when we get home. So some guys are just that way. It just takes them a while. I'm wondering, and I don't know this, but I'm wondering whether some people in the Twins organization aren't rethinking the spring training workload for people in terms of number of at-bats. Yeah. Byron made contact last night after striking out 10 straight times, 10 straight at-bats. He was held back, got his at-bats in the minor league fields and all that. But maybe there'll be some rethinking. Look, we need to give our guys, our frontline guys, they've got to have 50 at-bats in spring training so that they're ready for the start of the year.
I know you're a busy man today. Thanks for being flexible so we can have you on. And safe travels back home. Have a great call tonight. We'll see you next week for a matinee with the Yankees, all right?
All right, Dom, you got it.
Thanks for doing this. Dick Bremer joining us live from Boston. He'll be on the call tonight as the Twins and Red Sox play Game 2 of their set, then a matinee tomorrow at Fenway Park. It'll be Joe Ryan, as we showed our graphic earlier, and Corey Kluber will be the starters for this second game of the 3-game set. Then Kenta Maeda will go tomorrow. And then the Nationals are in town. A rare visit there, but again, that's part of the new schedule where everybody plays everybody. So the Washington Nationals, who are mired in last in the National League East, will be at Target Field this weekend. And then the Yankees come in, as we were visiting off air, and that's the last time that the Twins will see the Yankees in 2023. And then a real interesting part of the schedule, because a week, not this Friday, a week from Friday, the Twins are playing a afternoon game, a 3:10 game on Friday the 28th. And I was told, because I asked the Twins about this, I'm like, is this because of the Timberwolves and the Wild with potential playoff games happening? It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with TV. It's something the Twins are trying this year with a happy hour kind of game, so to speak, to get more people to the ballpark, more people from around Minneapolis to maybe leave work early and go to the game. It's certainly not conducive for television, because I think 3 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday isn't necessarily sit down and watch a ball game. But when you're trying to get, as the Twins are, get more people in the seats because attendance has lacked over the last few years, that's an interesting strategy. They're going to do it a couple times this year. I'll be intrigued to see how that works out. We're due for a break. We come back. We'll dive more into the Grant Nelson decision on him declaring for the NBA draft. You'll hear from David Richman, his thoughts on what went down and what's next for Grant and the Bison men's basketball team. We'll do that. We wrap hour 1 of Hot Mike on this Wednesday morning. We're back right after this.
Get 11% off everything at Menards. Mastercraft makes great doors inside and out, building the highest quality doors in a wide selection of styles. Get a ready-to-paint steel exterior door system for just $219.99 after rebate. Updating door handles are an easy way to show off your style. Quick-set handles and levers come in a variety of options across 6 finishes. Pick up this Juno entry combo for only $34.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
Next DT, we're with Chris Evans and Ana de Armas for the premiere of their new movie, Ghosted.
What's not to love about her? She's so good at everything she does.
Plus,
how does it feel to be here? It feels good to be anywhere.
We're with the stars and fellow icons celebrating 90 years of Carol Burnett.
She brings out the worst in me, and I bring out the best in her, I think.
Next DT.
Weekdays at 6:30 on WDAY WDAZ.
On the next Tamron Hall, she's presided over some of the most colorful characters in the courtroom, from the unforgettable feuds to the post-trial zingers. Stop talk. That live on in memes. Judge Marilyn Milian on gaveling out of the People's Court after 26 seasons. Then William Stanford Davis is the hilarious janitor who steals the scenes on Abbott Elementary. If you think you love his character, just wait until you hear his backstory. Plus, SNL alum Shashir Zameda joins the Tam fam. Next Tamron Hall.
Weekdays at 2 p.m. on WDAY WDAZ.
There are places, people, and conditions in this world that almost seem beyond hope. But not when Mercy Ships is there. Mercy Ships is a place restoring sight to the blind, normalcy to the deformed, beauty and happiness to the outcast, and joy to the brokenhearted.
And many times, you can almost see the life coming back into them. Can't beat that.
Mercy Ships is the largest floating civilian hospital in the world, staffed with some of the most skilled volunteer medical professionals and crew. Mercy Ships is the reason why hope is now in sight for those who need it most. To learn more, go to mercyships.org today.
I'm Tyne Morgan, host of U.S. Farm Report. Join me right here each weekend as we explore the news and issues that matter most to agriculture. We know each year farmers and ranchers are thrown challenges, but as agriculture continues to adapt, we are right there with you. From markets to weather, we take a deep dive into what matters most to agriculture and rural America.
Saturdays at 6 a.m.
It's been said that when someone you love has Parkinson's, you have Parkinson's. The truth is, Parkinson's disease doesn't just affect the diagnosed. It affects everyone who supports and helps care for them. Worldwide, over 10 million people are living with Parkinson's, a neurological disease that affects movement. And with so many places to search for information, it can be difficult to know where to begin. The Parkinson's Foundation has answers. Answers for everyone in the fight. We can help you understand the disease, help you find expert care, give you tips for living a better life, share the latest research, help you find local support, and there's a free helpline you can call. Find your answers and join us in the fight against Parkinson's. To learn more, please go to parkinson.org or call 1-800-4PD-INFO. The Parkinson's Foundation. Better lives together.
All right, wrapping up our first hour. Our thanks to Dick Bremer for joining us a little bit earlier. He's got an MC thing he's got to do in Boston today, so we appreciate his time today. Of course, the big news yesterday as we were on the air centered on NDSU standout Devils Lake native Grant Nelson, formally declaring for the NBA draft while maintaining his college eligibility. I think that's important, again, to remind people on this as we're going to go through this process for the first time. We've done the NFL draft stuff with guys from around here. This is a different deal with the NBA draft and an underclassman as it works with Grant. The feedback that he has received from sending in a survey to the underclassmen part of the NBA draft process was favorable enough to recommend this, to the point where I think if you read that post that he put on Instagram yesterday, and we read it on the air together, that I think you put two and two together, that I don't think he's playing another game for the Bison no matter what happens, whether it's he is drafted or he enters the NCAA transfer portal. Yesterday afternoon, went up to the Shack and had a chance to visit with Bison men's basketball coach David Richman to get his thoughts on this, what it means for Grant and the team, and how the Bison go forward, not knowing if Nelson's going to be a part of the 2024 team. This is, something that we've talked about for the last couple months. Now it's official. Just tell me your thoughts on Grant and his decision.
Well, I get accused of not smiling much, you know, and you can see the smile. Like, this is a really cool deal. This is a really neat experience for Grant. This has been a fun learning experience for myself. But ultimately, it's not about Grant. It's not about Dave Richman. This is Bison basketball, you know. And for us to have someone of the talent, the magnitude of character that Grant has and is all about, and to have these opportunities, a really cool experience. Extremely happy for Grant, for his family, and as well as our program.
Did this come as a surprise at all?
Today does not come as a surprise for me, no. This doesn't just happen in a spontaneous moment. There's a number of people a lot more versed than Grant, myself, his family, in these situations that have helped guide us all in this process. We knew this day was coming when there was going to be a formal announcement. But the background and the legwork to get to this point has been going on pretty much since the end of the season.
So I guess for how you handle this now going forward, are you anticipating hey, he's moving on? Like, how do you adjust for your own roster?
Yeah, I mean that's the goal. It really is. The number one thing that I want is the same thing that we want as a program, and it's the same thing Grant wants, and that's for him to be in the NBA. I mean that is an unbelievable opportunity. There's 60 people that get drafted in this draft coming up in June, and so if Grant's fortunate enough to be one of them, that would be awesome. When it comes to the specifics, like to your point, scholarship-wise. Clearly we're going to hold on to that thing if it doesn't, unfortunately it doesn't work out. Are we going to be doing some things in the background to kind of have some conversations? Yeah, I mean that you're still, as the head coach here, as a leader, you're obligated to do what's right by the program. But I want to make it crystal clear, this is a fun, exciting day for our program, but in particular right now for Grant.
Just you and I had this conversation 3 months ago that it's all started basically. I know it didn't really start with a tweet, but it seemed like it did. Could you just 3 months ago that this wasn't even a topic, and now here it is?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of social media, Dom. You and I have talked about that. In fact, our program's got a social media cleanse going right now as we round into finals week. But clearly, there's some benefits, and again. Grant is unique, right? He's the unicorn for a reason. Did we anticipate some of these things happening? Clearly, we spoke publicly about it. Grant and I had talked openly about it, that these should be goals and aspirations. Now, the storm that it came with when that tweet went out, I don't know if any of us really realized that, but I think in life, when you got a goal and you got a dream and you get an opportunity to chase that, pursue it, and maybe accomplish it, any way, shape, or form that thing happens, you'll take it.
You and I have had conversations of leading into the NBA draft about guys you have faced. Now you're going to have potentially a guy on your team that goes through this. Describe what this means, not only for the team, but for you personally.
Well, I do think that, Dom. I mean, this is, in anything, there's a pinnacle. In basketball, that orange ball, the pinnacle is the NBA. There's going to be a world champion, determined here in the next couple months. And for Grant to have that opportunity and that stage, it's really cool. You spoke, and through the process, I've been able to speak to some NBA players, some guys that we all know, and to have some of those conversations. But I think at the end of the day, the more you're around it, I talked to Grant today, and we talked about a few things, and we're joking, right? And he's still a Bison. He's still a normal human being from Devil's Lake, North Dakota. Most of those guys are. They're humble. They're hungry. You have a conversation with somebody you think might be like this. No, they're just good dudes, man. And a lot of times they've got a unique skill set, or they've got an unbelievable work ethic. And I think the other thing that I want to make sure I'm clear on too is Grant's very talented, right? But there's a lot of talented young men out there that could want and could pursue these opportunities. It's different, right? Our program, we talk about it. We talk about it being difficult, and we talk about the levels of accountability. And that's where I'm going to speak to Grant, and trusting our process, but also speak to our process too, where he's come in, he's put on probably 25, 30 pounds. He's done, his game has developed over time. Pretty fun and cool to see from a lot of prospects, or a lot of different perspectives.
And there's our conversation there with Dave from yesterday, and the part about this that I think people are really going to have to wrap their minds around is, I already saw some of the, and again, take for what it's worth on social media, the responses, well, good luck, going to Europe or play. That's fine too. But he's going to give this a shot. And the feedback that his family and the agency he signed with, which is the powerhouse basketball agency in this country, is that the NBA scouts are telling him that there's a good chance he could get drafted. And I was told yesterday the ultra elusive invite to the NBA Combine is a distinct possibility. If Grant gets invited to that, he's going to get drafted, folks. The last player that got invited to and performs well, he's got to perform well. The last player from our area or our universe that was selected, that was Max Asmus, stand up from Oral Roberts. He went 2 years ago to the Combine, did not perform well. That's why Asmus is still in school. Now on his 6 year of eligibility, he can play wherever when he decides to decide out of the portal. If Grant gets invited and does well in Chicago in the middle of May, buckle up, because this is happening. As much as people want to deny it or think it's just outlandish, it's a distinct possibility. We're going to have more on that coming up in our second hour. We'll take a break. When we come back, our usual Wednesday guest, Drew Trafton, will join us a little bit later in the show. Got lots to discuss there. We'll do that when we start hour 2 right after this.
Watch NDSU Spring Football on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Watch the Bison take the field at the Nodec Insurance Football Performance Complex, Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
When you watch First News, you're getting local news from a local team that understands and cares about your community. We're here for you with the most up-to-date news and weather to start your day. Because your community is our community.
The stories we share are more than just words. They are unseen conversations and interviews. They are hours of research and dedication. They are the stories that connect us with the truth and with each other. We are honored to share your stories.
Send your weather-related photos or video to the WDAY Storm Tracker team. Contact weather@WDAY.com or share them with us on Facebook and Instagram. Keeping an eye on the sky. The WDAY Storm Tracker team.
This is a murder mystery of epic proportions. You get this picture of a jealous guy, thinks she's got a lover, and bang, she's dead.
What possessed you to do that?
Could this be a murder for hire?
When you've got something that was this bad,
somebody's got to pay.
Dateline. Weekdays at 1 p.m.
News happens at all hours of the day and night.
Stories develop and situations change in the blink of an eye.
In our community, knowing where you can turn at any time of the day
for clear information and facts
is more important today than at any other time.
That's why we start our day
in the middle of the night
to gather new information
and be ready to bring it to you.
Tracking what has changed overnight and how that will impact your day today.
We're here for you with the most up-to-date news and weather
to get you on your way,
because your community
is our community.
There is a road laid out for me.
Boxes everywhere. And this is going to be Addie's room.
I am blind.
You really don't like it?
I hope so. Yeah.
I know this road is there for me. There is a long way.
First night here, but Amy seems cool.
The way it's down by the river. I am blind, but I need not see.
I got this.
I know it's there for me.
Okay.
If I'm really free, take me down to the river and wash me. Oh.
Do you want to meet a family with a transgender kid? Here we are. Max loves to do backflips. Max loves to play his ukulele. Max loves to just be a kid and just be himself. When I found out I was pregnant, all I really wanted was a happy, healthy, whole child. And that's what I got. I think it's really important for people to know that trans kids don't have a political agenda. They are just kids. Like any parent, we love our kids unconditionally, and we will never stop fighting for them. Stand with us. Protect our families.
Veterans, when you're struggling, soon becomes later, becomes someday, becomes when. Don't wait. Reach out.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo. The biggest Seahawks, Sounders, and Mariners fan in the FM area. It's time for Views with Drew.
Well, I always appreciate when this guy comes on, even more so. I asked you to extend your day by another half hour, 45 minutes.
Hey,
so thanks for coming on here. Bremer
when
could
Dick
only do a
Bremer has to go at 9:15. Dick Bremer goes at 9:15. I have no qualms about moving for that guy.
Well, I appreciate coming on.
Or anybody else.
Drew Trafton joining us here on this Wednesday, 8 days out from the NFL draft. I want to get to that in a second. Executive producer of our show, Eric Bedell, made sure he emailed to say, Dom, ask Drew what happened to the Mariners the last 2 days. Well, the backstory is the Mariners are playing the Brewers, who allegedly are okay in the National League Central.
The zombie Seattle Pilots, as I like
exactly.
to call them.
That's a great way to put it. We have the highlights from the game last night. The Brewers rallied and beat Seattle 6-5 in 11 innings here. Mariners are 8-10. What's going on with your boys here?
Well, this last weekend, it looked like they were starting to put it together a little bit. They did play the Rockies, and they were able to go,
That's the
got
great
back
part
to
about the new schedule.
500.
You can get healthy against some bad teams.
Yeah. They just have pitching issues right now more than anything, and it was hitting to start the season, and, they're just kind of fighting through it. But there are these bright spots that I keep seeing. I know I've mentioned that in weeks past, and I really do think that they're gonna kind of come out of it as long as they're like floating around 500. And if they're within striking distance of 500, we get into June. I think they're going to be in okay shape.
That's the tough part here on this part of the season. It's like you can't win anything yet, but you can certainly play yourself out of even with the expansion of the playoff. You can still put yourself in especially in that division, because Houston's going to win games.
Yeah, they're going to come out of it, and they're going to come out swinging. And
the Angels are going to. You think eventually are going to put their act together.
Yeah.
The one thing I'll say, Oakland's horrible. The Mets were in Oakland this weekend. I mean, that is a AAA team right now, and they are actively trying to lose.
Yes, they're not
bad.
They're not in great shape, and the Rangers too. I mean,
I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, people were asking when DeGrom signed there. I'm like, good luck. Texas has never been good. The last time Texas was good was 12 years ago when they went to the World Series 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
They can't put it. They could spend all the money in the world. They're not going to put it together there.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
So you got that going for you. You got 24 games against those two teams.
And hey, Jared Kelnick is now. He had a game. He had a stretch there last week. One of the bright spots I just mentioned. Four games in a row where he hit a home run.
About that trade, though, as I were mentioning the Arise Pablo Lopez deal, that seems to me, the Cano part of it, I'll never understand.
That's kind of a wash. I think that was a contract deal.
But it seems like that trade may have worked out finally well for both sides.
Yeah.
Diaz was a disastrous first year in New York.
Yeah.
Since then, he's been really, really good.
Yeah, last year, holy cow.
Get out of the minors, went up and was horrible in the majors, but now seems like, he's found it. This was I think he was like the number 3 or 4 prospect all of baseball when the Mets made that trade with the Mariners.
That seemed to be like, the Mariners thought that they were getting their, right fielder of the future, with Kelnick. And boy, his bat is when he's hitting, he is something to be reckoned with. And I think you're right. That trade it's never seemed to balance out one way or the other.
It was definitely the Mets' way last year.
Yeah,
no doubt about it.
Yeah, and then now, it seems like
the Mariners' way this year.
Seattle, and maybe it'll even out eventually.
Did you stay up or wake up early to watch your beloved Kraken in the NHL playoffs?
No, I saw the highlights, though. I definitely, the first thing I did when I woke up was I went to, ESPN app and I checked it out. Yeah, that's exciting.
They went to the Stanley Cup champions. We have the video here. They were opening their first playoff game. Morehead's Will Borgen making his playoff debut. And the Kraken go to Denver. And this is how they score the first goal of the game, by the way. It's a gift because the goalie, I'll never understand coming out of the net to play the puck like that. You're really,
goals were, I think, 2 of the 3 at least were on weird,
by the way, I
like
tweeted this out.
Steals.
Seattle's road jerseys are the best jerseys, I think, in all of sports.
Yeah, they're pretty slick, aren't they?
Sweet. That's a heck of a goal there.
They have
that
an
made
alternate
it a 2-1 game.
That is primarily that teal color.
I don't think I've seen that one.
It's pretty neat looking.
They got a couple of breaks here because this one clanked off the top of the crossbar on that chance down low, but Grubauer was really, really good in that.
Now joined a handful of clubs that have won their first,
as Vegas did
Stanley Cup playoff game, and they.
But here's the thing: they went on the road and won. That's the thing to me. They went to Denver, who's the Stanley Cup champs, and won this game. By the way, all the road teams won in the Stanley Cup playoffs last night, which is wild. I can't wait. This game 3, I think, is Saturday night in Seattle. That's going to be a scene. Holy cow.
Yeah, they do that really, really well at Climate Pledge Arena. But talk about one city having another city's goat right now, because the Russell Wilson trade, how that one is starting to look. The Super Bowl 48.
Man.
This just last weekend, the Mariners swept the Rockies like that.
Oh wow, there it is, man. That is the beatdown.
There's a little bit of momentum going that way right now for sure.
So game 2 of that is coming up. That'll be on Thursday night, as I mentioned. Game 3, the first one in Seattle.
Probably just
9 o'clock Seattle, 9 o'clock Central Time Saturday night on TBS. Before we came on the news or the show here today, we had some news from Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network. If you saw this, I teased it off the top of the show. Rappaport reporting sources telling him the 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking into a potential trade for former number 3 overall pick Trey Lance. The conversations have been the result of San Francisco fielding the calls, not making them, with teams aware that Brock Purdy is likely the future starter. This is something that we have talked about, especially since Kyle Shanahan came out, and John Lynch, the general manager, saying Purdy has earned the right to be the 49ers starter. I think we're going to see something between now and next Thursday.
Yeah, I do too. And do you have teams that you think are reaching out? Because I have 2 in mind.
I would say the Minnesota Vikings should be one of them. Okay. I do. I firmly believe that.
They weren't on my list. But
would you agree with that?
Oh,
the Vikings should be in the conversation on that.
Anytime you're playing with the starting quarterback in their contract year, you have to have contingency plans in place, and they don't have that.
No,
they don't have.
Well, maybe they do, and we don't know. Yeah. Maybe that's re-signing Kirk. I don't know. But if I am the Vikings, I'm at least, because you're not going to have to give up a first-round pick for this guy, which is crazy to think.
Right,
but
especially after the haul that San Francisco gave up to do that.
By the way, just real quick, Rappaport added, well, no trade is imminent, and the 49ers would almost certainly want to make sure Brock Purdy's rehab continues to go as smoothly as it's been going. The interest from other teams in Lance has been there. That's what he thinks I think something will happen between now and the draft.
Yeah, well, and he's he's been sitting. He is working with a quarterback whisperer.
With Patrick Mahomes, you've been seeing him work with. From all intents and purposes, he appears to be healthy.
His coaching staff has been, he's with the right people when it comes to the quarterback position.
Who are your teams, by the way?
It's Tennessee Titans.
Okay.
I think make a lot of sense. They've been rumored to be possibly thinking about moving up.
And the former 49ers assistant GM is now in Tennessee. I remember Trey tweeted out about that he was excited that happened.
It just makes a lot of sense there. And then I'm thinking Baltimore is another potential landing spot, just off the top of my head.
All right.
I don't think, Las Vegas has been tossed around as a quarterback destination, but I don't think the Raiders. Exactly. Well, the Raiders wouldn't do that to Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think.
Right.
Like, they wouldn't put him in the exact same situation.
I understand
he just
some
left.
guys hate Garoppolo, but that just seems cruel to me. If
that doesn't make a lot of sense. Tennessee makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, the Titans are doing something.
That really that works a little bit. Indianapolis maybe, but they're in such a good position to draft their guy that it wouldn't really work.
Just
in the NFC, I don't know if they would go there in the NFC.
Yeah, who knows anymore? The Vikings have kind of blown that out the window by trading in the division twice over, over the last 8 months
could
or
Green
so.
Bay be, they seem to be really high on Jordan Love.
Yeah.
And there doesn't seem to be a lot of, a need to do that. The LA Rams that would be
Seems like the Rams are stripping everything down to the studs, by the way.
And
the trading of Allen Robinson yesterday.
They've been really quiet about Matt Stafford's rehab, and how he's doing and how much tread he has left on the tires. That would be an in-division move, though.
Yeah. I know we just said
dirty,
it would happen, but
I don't know if that would, if that one would fly.
One thing on this that I think the total number of passes he has thrown since the 2019 season, when he was the Walter Payton winner here, is around 200 passes, which is, remember, he played one game in 2020. He played a handful of games in his rookie year of 21 and played a game and a half in 22. He's barely played any football. And he started 16 games in 2019.
Yeah. That's
I mean, he's barely played any football over the last 4 years. It's remarkable. But clearly the 49ers' success with Purdy has made him expendable.
Mm-hmm.
They signed Sam Darnold for a reason. Drew. Sam Darnold's the backup in my mind. You know what I mean? And Darnold, at the end of last season,
he's a very viable
played
backup.
well in Carolina.
He's an extremely viable backup. And so you don't need those three guys there again. And
I
they
just think the writing's on the wall.
Yeah.
The asking for, like the Jets and the Packers are haggling over about what the compensation is going to be for Aaron Rodgers. It's not going to be a first-round guy for Trey Lance. I don't believe so. If the Vikings wanted to go to San Francisco and say, here's our 2000, well, they don't have a second-round pick this year, but here's our 2024 second-round pick, we'll take Trey Lance. I think the 49ers would do that. Maybe I don't know how much. Maybe you sweeten it with a 6-rounder this year or something like that. And I don't know.
Interesting that story's breaking today.
Another point on that. Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
It's like how
somebody wants that out there.
We're T-minus 8 days from the draft.
It's the 49ers who want that out there.
Exactly.
I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to put two and two
I would think that they're looking for immediate capital then, since it's breaking now.
Yeah,
that would be my thought.
Maybe it's Dalvin Cook.
Maybe
because he's expendable.
Yeah,
you know.
And can you imagine Dalvin Cook with the San
you already got
49ers?
Christian McCaffrey there, but I mean that's
Debo
I don't know.
That's lethal.
If you're looking for
I don't like that idea at all, Dom. As a Seahawks fan, I do not like. Don't put that idea in their head.
Let's we have the draft order. Let's bring that up as we sit here today. So we're 8 days out from the first day of the draft. We're gonna have our big mock draft special a week from tomorrow. This is what the top half of the draft looks like as we sit here today. We know the Cardinals are certainly in the market for shopping the 3 pick, as we know. There's a lot of momentum now, Drew. The Texans aren't necessarily going to draft a quarterback with the second overall pick, which is really, really interesting there.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at so what if Houston and say Arizona, they can't move their pick? They're not going to take a quarterback.
No.
So you're looking at maybe Will Anderson Jr., maybe Jalen Carter, maybe Tyree Wilson coming off the board in those first 3.
So that means the quarterback is landing in your spot as well at 5 with the Seahawks if they want to go that route.
Or they're sitting somewhere where they could then trade if a team wants to move up.
Correct.
I mean, I think Detroit might be in that
to leapfrog up to there.
Or say Indianapolis takes their quarterback at that point and Seattle doesn't. Detroit could move up, or they could. If Seattle doesn't take a quarterback and they can't trade, then Detroit's looking at a spot where a team can move up. And it takes a lot less draft capital and trading to move up to get the 4th best quarterback than it does, to move up to 4 to take the 3rd best quarterback.
You know what was really interesting on this first half of the draft, and then we'll look at the back half? The Patriots at 14. I don't know what New England's doing. I don't know what.
Well, with all the talk about Mac Jones,
I know.
How about that as a landing spot for Trey Lance?
Could be there. Yep.
Taken
in the same draft.
That makes a ton of sense. That would be kind of a scary situation. Washington makes a lot of sense to me for Trey Lance.
The scary part about this is the Super Bowl runners-up have the 10th overall pick.
Right?
That's the part where they just get to continue to
and they also have
that roster.
Pick 30, 31 or 30 in this draft because of the Dolphins situation.
Don't have a pick, right?
They could package those and move up.
Correct.
If Philly really likes Will Anderson, You're going to tell me Arizona's not going to take 10 and 30 in this draft?
Absolutely.
They take that. Yeah,
especially with the guy who runs the Cardinals now as the OC with the Eagles with Sirianni. On this
list, there is nothing guaranteed after the first pick, I don't think, in this draft. And it's really fun to see all the different stuff.
How many teams on this list need a quarterback? One does. Are we sold on two? The Texans
does, but I don't know if they go with it this year because they've got so much more they need to build.
So Carolina, Houston, Duke, Indianapolis does. The Seahawks don't. We think the Lions don't. I think they're good with Goff. The Raiders don't. The Falcons is interesting because they've already said that Desmond Ritter is their guy, who they drafted last year.
You almost want to try him out, but he was they got him so late in the game that you could justify that.
The Bears don't. The Eagles don't. The Titans, I think, do. The Titans have not made any commitment to Tannehill. We can see the Texans have their other pick there. The Jets.
They shouldn't.
I don't believe they will. The Patriots, maybe they do.
All indicators are that there's smoke there, that they are not settled on Mac Jones.
The Packers don't. The Commanders do.
Yeah.
Kyle, can we see the back half here? There's the back end of the draft now. The Steelers don't. The Bucks certainly do.
Yeah.
The Chargers don't. The Ravens may. The Vikings, I think, need a plan.
Yeah.
The Jags don't. The Giants don't. Cowboys don't. Bills in the back half. That's why you're drafting at the back half because you have quarterbacks
you're settled there. I mean, the Saints are. I mean, they've got Derek Carr.
And then they paid him a monster money. They're in bed with Derek Carr now.
They're going all in on that, I guess. Yeah,
it's going to be really interesting. I think
there's some teams there also, though. Like I mentioned, the Los Angeles Rams. They're not on that in the round.
You do not see the Rams there because they don't have a first-round pick because they gave it to the Lions.
They don't value draft picks at all. I don't think it would be outrageous for them to trade out, future year draft picks to jump in this draft if they see their quarterback there of the future. Because I don't think Stafford's got. I mean, he might have a year left or two, but beyond that, their succession plan is wanting as well.
Before we wrap up, this is what the beauty of the draft is now. It's not necessarily the guys that are going to be picked. I was talking about this with Kyle Emanuel yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
It's now the trades around it. Remember, A.J. Brown got traded on draft night last year. That's going to happen again next week, and that's why it's such a popular deal here.
You could see arguably the best quarterback in the league, with Aaron Rodgers, outside of,
I think it's going to happen next Friday. I think it's going to happen before the second round.
Yeah.
It's going to happen there.
And that would dominate.
Oh, it has for the last month.
Even though we know it's coming, if that news drops, that's the story of the round.
Well, you remember 2 years ago we were doing our show, and then Paul Allen pulled out the tweet about that Rodgers wanted out, and it turned out to be accurate that he wanted out of Green Bay then. I mean, and it tore up the first round of the draft 2 years ago.
Were we slaughtered over that thing too? Remember that? Everybody, the knives were out that morning after we talked about that.
No doubt. Great to see you, man. I hope the Mariners are able to pick up a win here before they wrap up this series.
Me too. But hey, the Kraken, they're cracking along.
You're on them. You hop on that Seattle bandwagon.
I've got the draft to look forward to. I've been listening to podcasts 8 hours a day on what Seattle might maybe do in the first 4 rounds. So yeah, I've got other things.
A couple of multiple picks like the Seahawks do. We'll see you next week for the draft.
Oh, I'm excited.
Drew Trafton joining us here a little bit later on a Wednesday. Thanks for sticking around, bud. I appreciate it. We'll take a break. We come back, recap the night that happened in the playoffs, both in the NHL and the NBA, and a fun guest at 10:35 that saw. Did he discover Grant Nelson? We'll ask him when we roll on a Wednesday morning. Back after this.
The Dragons Digital Network is here to bring you live coverage of all MSUM Dragons home events everywhere you want to watch. DDN combines all streaming options of the MSUM Dragons, NSIC Network, WDAY, and in Forum. All the games, all live on social media, smart TV apps, mobile apps, websites, and more. So however you like to watch, the Dragons are there on the Dragons Digital Network.
Give any room a fresh look with the beauty of Mohawk Tile. Mohawk features more than 350 ceramic, porcelain, and mosaic glass tiles to fit any decor. Pick up 12 by 12 ceramic tiles for only 89 cents each after rebate. Complete your tiling job with professional installation products from TAC. Menards stocks a full line of mortar, grout, and floor preparation products. Get a 50-pound bag of thin set mortar for only $9.99 after 11% rebate.
Save big money at Menards.
everything for an hour that has everything. From Rach's creamy chicken marsala dinner to Criminal Minds evolution star Aisha Tyler.
I totally want to go to the moon. Oh my God, nerdy 12-year-old me would totally get on a spaceship.
Plus,
let's use what we got. Let's show cook.
how a mom of 8 rolls with a casserole. Mixed Rachel.
Weekdays at 3 on WDAY WDAZ.
The Subaru Crosstrek. Dog tested, dog approved. Love. It's what makes Subaru, Subaru.
Check out the new Subaru models today at Muscatel Subaru.
Thanks for buying a fishing license.
What the?
I know, but listen. I want you to picture all the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean so families can fish and swim, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
It also provides fishing education and activities for the kids, and funds long-term plans to protect our lakes and streams.
Wow.
Wow is right.
Did he?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot, because every dollar from a license purchase protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Learn more at takemefishing.org.
Sorry, I'm out sick again. I just can't shake this fever.
Spread by mosquito bites, West Nile virus is found in nearly every state across the country.
Elena had another asthma attack. She's really sad to miss school again.
Asthma, a leading chronic illness among children and youth in the U.S., can often be triggered by allergens from household pests.
Hi, Chief. I finally got a diagnosis. It's Lyme disease. I'll be out for a few days, maybe longer.
Every year, nearly 300,000 people nationwide are diagnosed with Lyme disease, an illness from tick bites.
Coach, I'm at the hospital. I got stung by something and had a bad allergic reaction. I'm not going to make the game.
Stinging insects send more than 500,000 people to the emergency room every year. Don't let pests force you to take a sick day. Learn how to protect yourself and your family at pestworld.org.
Welcome back, everybody, to Hot Mike, WDAY Extra, and Forum.com. Derek Gathman, former Devils Lake boys basketball coach, going to join us here in a couple minutes. He got a personal shout-out from Grant Nelson yesterday. He was the guy who coached him in high school. Found him. We'll get into that here in just a few minutes. We went through a little bit of the Stanley Cup last night, the playoff games. I mentioned all 4 road teams won last night in the Stanley Cup playoffs, which again means home ice means nothing. Going back to what happened Monday with the Wild winning in Dallas, the Devils won on the road, beating the Rangers. The Lightning routed the Maple Leafs last night in a game that was bonkers. Final score in that game, 7-. What was it here? I got the wrong game. It was 4. No, yeah, I got the wrong date. Yeah, it was 7-3 last night. The Leafs lost to the Lightning. The Jets, who were the overall 8 seed, went to Vegas and routed the Knights 5-1. And you saw what the Kraken did, winning in Colorado by a 3-1 score. So apparently home ice means nothing. So for you Wild fans, for tonight's game, for Game 2, boy, that'd be so. You know Dallas is going to go gangbusters for tonight, but they're going to want to get that second game to even this up because they do not want to go back to St. Paul down 0-2 with the Wild getting the next 2 games at home. But that was a crazy sequence of the games last night. Meanwhile, in the NBA playoffs last night, the Cavaliers routed the Knicks. The Hawks had a big win over the Celtics. And the Suns evened up their series with the Clippers last night at a game apiece, which has been a dynamite series so far. Phoenix actually won that game last night, 123-109 over the Clippers. So now that's a game apiece with the next game coming up on Friday. The biggest news in the NBA happened off the court, which yesterday, which the NBA announced about 10 o'clock last night, by the way, which was odd timing, that Draymond Green has been suspended for Game 3 of the playoff series between Golden State and Sacramento that will happen tomorrow night in San Francisco. It happened because of that play there of him stomping on Domantas Sabonis late in the fourth quarter. And actually, from what Joe Dumars, the vice president of the NBA who handles discipline, this is what got Draymond suspended. The histrionics, the escalation of the fans, a past history was what was cited in the press release that came out late last night. And so Golden State, which is already down 2-0 and going back home, now has to do it without its best defender and one of its best players. And you can roll your eyes at what Draymond does. It grows tiresome for me, but you can't discount the value he has on the floor. I mean, his value as a defender, as an agitator, and as a rebounder is second to none. I mean, he's that good. And I think Charles Barkley made a really interesting point on their show last night. I didn't say it at the NBA, and we got to go to break. This will be the talk all day. We're talking about it here. It's going to be the talk of all major talk shows. It's taken away what Sacramento has done. The Kings have dominated the first 2 games of that series against the world champs and put them in a real bind heading into Game 3. Granted, they're back home, and they've played infinitely better at home than they have on the road all season long, but it's just been a different series than maybe many expected with Sacramento going and winning the first 2 games. But no Draymond for Game 3. For you Timberwolves fans, late night tonight, the Wolves back in action as they'll play Game 2 against the Nuggets after Denver won comfortably on Sunday night in Game 1. We'll preview that before we say goodbye. We're going to take a break. We come back. We'll head to Devil's Lake, North Dakota, the home of Grant Nelson and the guy who coached him up from his high school years to become Mr. Basketball, now seeing him as a potential NBA draft pick. Derek Gathman will join us when Hot Mike returns on WDAY Extra at Inforum.com.
As a personal injury lawyer, we represent people that have been seriously injured in any type of situation where someone else is at fault. When someone's been injured, they have medical bills. They aren't able to work. They still have bills to pay. They have a family to take care of. We can help navigate that situation.
A law firm known for success. O'Keefe, O'Brien, Leeson Attorneys.
When it comes to making plans, you are the best. Those 9 months were also 273 days of planning. What about your daughter's first costume party? It was out of this world. And let's not forget those barbecues you plan in detail for your family and your more vegetarian by the day best friends. That surprise party for your parents' golden anniversary? You get the golden planning. The same way you plan each detail for those moments. Start planning to protect you and your loved ones from a natural disaster. Sign up for local weather and emergency alerts. Prepare an emergency kit and make a family communications plan. Protecting your family is the best plan you can make.
The end of hunger and poverty starts here. Your gift of an animal from Heifer International can help a family start a small business, creating food and income for education, medicine, and more, all while caring for the earth. At Heifer International, we help small-scale farmers achieve living incomes through economic development and private sector partnerships. We empower communities by creating women's groups, farmers associations, and cooperatives that strengthen social support networks. And we teach sustainable, earth-friendly agriculture that minimizes environmental impact and reduces the carbon footprint. Around the world and right here at home. Heifer International. Learn more at heifer.org.
You got lots of money over here.
I want to go for it.
So do I. Let's do it.
You bet your life.
Give me the money. More money. $5,000.
Boosting the economy.
You seriously asking me this question, Jay? Coney Island. What are we doing over here?
Every weekday.
Yeah, give me that money. Oh, yeah. I'm going to give it to you like an Italian uncle. Here you go. You get yourself a little something there. There you go. Right there.
Weekdays at 3:30 p.m.
Overcoming drug addiction was difficult, but I found the path to recovery that worked for me. Treatment helped me come to terms with the issues in my life that caused me to use drugs. And I found better ways to cope. Learning I had a substance use disorder helped me realize I needed to make a change. The road to recovery is different for everyone. There were good days and bad days. But I found strength in seeking help. My friends and family made a huge difference in my recovery. I never gave up. I found my path, and I keep walking it every day. Find the path that works for you. Learn more at cdc.gov/stopoverdose.
Welcome back, everybody, on a Wednesday morning edition of Hot Mic. We roll on WDAY Extra, Inforum.com. On a busy Wednesday for you Minnesota sports fans. I mentioned earlier, everybody playing today. We'll preview that before we say so long. If you'll indulge me for a quick second for Dom's story time. Our next guest, I had the pleasure of first interviewing back in the summer of, I think, 2019, when I was hearing about this tall kid up in Devil's Lake. I'm hearing this, well, he's getting some buzz, and I think the Bison may offer him. I'm like, well, I saw him play in the EDC this past winter. I'm like, all right, he was all right. And lo and behold, here we are now 4 years later, and this has become a thing. It's our pleasure to welcome back to our show former Devils Lake boys basketball coach Derek Gathman joins us on this Wednesday morning. I remember that conversation, asking him, like, tell me about Grant, because I saw him play. I think I saw him play against West Fargo Cheyenne. I'm like, he had some moves, and now here we are 4 years later, and this is going to become one of the biggest sports stories, I think, in North Dakota history. It really has that potential.
Yeah, I mean, it's blown up. He's grown immensely since that summer when we talked about him first, and we saw the potential, but I didn't think NBA potential. So it's pretty awesome how it's grown.
Tell me, you got a personal shout out yesterday from Grant and his message. What was that? Was reading that? What was that emotion when you saw that?
Yeah, I was teaching and I got a bunch of messages, and I checked at lunch, and they're like, yeah, check out Grant's post on Instagram. And that's pretty cool. And I think it just shows what kind of character Grant is. He knows where he's come from. He knows what's got him to that point. And we're super thankful. We don't think we're that big of a part of what he's done. I mean, he works his butt off, and growing a foot helps, being 6'11" or whatever. So, but we're appreciative of that. And we know he's a good kid, and he appreciates.
I got it. So I got to ask, have the NBA scouts called? Have they called you? Have you gotten any of those phone calls yet?
I did have one team message me. That was about a month ago. They're just doing their due diligence, checking on what kind of kid he is, what kind of work ethic he has. I would guess I'm going to get more of those emails and phone calls here coming up. But yeah, I've already had at least one.
All right. So what was that surreal? What was that experience like then?
I thought I was getting spammed. I got an email from them, and I'm like, this just can't be true. So I had to Google the name of the guy, and there he is. He's one of the scouts for that team. And I'm like, okay, this is real. And we talked for about 20 minutes. And then afterwards, I'm just kind of like, whoa, I just talked to an NBA scout about one of my players. That's crazy. But yeah, crazy.
It made it more real than ever, I imagine, after that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Never thought I'd be doing that.
Take me back to the early days of this when he was, a JV guy, early in varsity. About the early progression of his game, and you mentioned obviously the growth spurts certainly helped, but was the talent, the skill there early on?
Yeah, his family is super athletic. All the kids are playing basketball. His older brother Leif is a year older, and we had him. And then I played with his older brother Justin in high school. But yeah, he's like a 6-foot freshman, long and lanky, kind of like to do that little dribble thing, and it always kind of drive us nuts. But he was good with it. He was skilled. And then from freshman year to like sophomore year, in that summer, I think he grew 6 inches. And so then, he was starting JV that year, and then he ended up in our starting lineup by the end of that sophomore year. But he was a little timid with it. He wasn't super confident with his stuff. And then that summer between sophomore and junior year was like, whoa, this guy is something else now. And I credit to him. He just played basketball all the time. He was either at one of the parks outside playing, or he was at the college playing, or in our gym playing. I mean, if you saw Grant in public, he was playing basketball. And then that junior, like we had talked about, that senior year was just like, he just kind of blew up, and it just hasn't stopped.
When that junior year off season, Derek, when he went and played AAU basketball, he's playing with ECI, and then it's starting to swirl. Give me your best recollections of like, okay, this is something that if he hadn't committed to NDSU, what other Division I's would have been coming to your school?
Yeah, he committed fairly early, I think, in that summer period, and credit to Coach Richman, because they were on him right away, and I think he felt really comfortable with them and appreciated that, and there was some loyalty, and I think it was special for him to get that, for them to be his first one. But yeah, I know, like the Lake Region State College coach was like, if he didn't commit, I'm pretty sure some of the big schools would have been on him over that summer for AAU stuff, and who knows what that would have been, with the Hurlburts getting big time schools. I think everyone knows that kids can play basketball in North Dakota now. And so, yeah, I think we would have had quite a few D1 schools calling.
We saw the video of the state tournament in the bizarre state tournament of 2020 when you guys made it. I remember I had you on the show that morning as you guys were busing down to Fargo for the game. I remember the first dunk he had. I looked over my shoulder, and there's Dave Richman, and I was like, I did the shoulder, the Michael Jordan shrug, and he just kind of shook his hat at me. Take me back to that. He had 2 thunder dunks that night against a really good Jamestown team. But that, I thought, Derek, was his introduction to the state, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. Just getting that opportunity to be on that stage was super helpful. I know the semifinal game against Davies, he had a couple crazy dunks. I remember watching one of the NDSU guys sprint out of the gym after his windmill dunk. And, it was weird for us because it was just like, yeah, that's Grant. Like we kind of got used to it and kind of took it for granted. And it was like, yeah, he is doing crazy stuff, isn't he? But yeah, it was awesome, getting the chance to get to the state tournament. I think that probably, helped Grant win Mr. Basketball that year.
I agree.
If we don't go to the state tournament, he's probably not Mr. Basketball. So it was awesome. And then everybody got to see him.
To see then, and I think you and I even talked about it, his freshman year, he wins the 6th man of the year in the Summit. And I said on this show, I said, if NDSU is able to get him for 3 years, they consider themselves lucky. I just thought going to the portal and playing at a bigger school. I didn't think NBA, but we were visiting off air. You had thoughts of professional basketball with him early on. Tell us about that.
Yeah, just with the high school, after that junior year, I was like, this guy's really good. And I played with a couple guys at Mayville who ended up playing professionally. And I'm like, I think he's better than these guys. And then being 7 foot almost and being able to do what he does. I was like, this guy's going to play basketball professionally somewhere. I didn't think NBA, but man, he just keeps getting better. Every year he's better. He adds something different. He's a competitor. You can see that, like he's getting after it all the time. And it's just wild to me. It's still a little like unbelievable, but pretty cool.
When the tweet went viral, and you've seen that, I mean, the dunks, but I guess the reaction in Devil's Lake was that in middle of January, that this is now, it's got 1.5 million views, even more than that now after that one out there.
Yeah, it was really cool to see like people outside of, NDSU and Devils like see him, because it's like, wow, I think we've got something really special here. If he could get noticed a little, differently or different places. So that was really cool that way. But yeah, Devils, like, I mean, I'm sure Grant's phone was just nuts. I can't even imagine how many texts and messages he got over that couple days.
So let me ask you now that even just from yesterday to today, what has been like in Devils Lake over the last 18 hours? That we knew this was likely coming, but now it's official. What has it been like even in school?
Yeah, the official part, I think a lot of people that are following that stuff know, like, hey, he's going to go through this process. It's the smart thing to do, and trying to explain like what that new process is. We talked about that, how NBA is so different than the other sports. So just, that conversation is pretty ongoing right now. And kids are all talking about it. They're like, oh, Grant's going NBA. And community members just asking about that and trying to figure out, okay, well, is he coming back? Is he going to go back to NDSU? Where's he going to be at? And they're all trying to get information from me, but I don't have anything. So.
I thought it was really neat, Derek, during the season that the current Devils Lake team came down to watch a game. They got a tour of the locker room. I've asked him this several times of how important his hometown is to him. Tell us about, on the flip side, of seeing that, of you guys seeing it up close, of how important Devils Lake is to him.
Yeah, I mean, he gets it. He knows where he came from. He's, Devils Lake is his home. He's talked about that numerous times, and he grew here. And I think the impact he's had on Devils Lake sports, the basketball team had a really successful year this year. And I think seeing Grant be successful was motivation for those kids. And with Grant's younger brother, Joel, on the team, they're kind of getting like a first person view of this really cool thing happening in basketball. And Coach Brodina did a great job getting those guys to get into the locker room and talk to Coach Richman and talk to Grant and get a really cool experience that way. So it just shows what kind of kid Grant is, that he gets that. He's a high character guy, and he really cares about those little things.
Can you give us any insight? Is there going to be a draft party in Devils Lake at the end of June? Do we know that yet?
I haven't heard. I'm waiting for my invite still. We'll see. I'm hoping I get one, but I don't know yet.
If this ends up, if it ends up happening though, and he ends up being, let's say, middle of the second round, tell us just in your mind, how big a deal is this?
I mean, getting drafted is just wild. We've had, some hockey kids get drafted, North Dakota, obviously with Bison and NFL, that's been pretty consistent the last few years, but this is something that's, never happened since Phil Jackson, maybe. That's probably the last North Dakota.
Yeah.
You can fact check me on that. I have no idea. But I think it's pretty crazy. Just the fact that he's even in this conversation is a super rare thing. And it'd be really cool. I don't even know how to put it in words how cool it is.
This is kind of a cliche question, but I got to ask, even now, a couple years removed, do you pinch yourself like, boy, we lived through that. We did this whole thing, and now on the back end, we're seeing how crazy this is, that you look back at the early days of when this all began and kind of just like, boy, I had a front row seat to everything.
Yeah, right. Well, I coached him in junior high football as a 7th grader. So I'm like starting there almost as like, that tall, lanky kid turned out, wow, it's just, it's amazing. And I think, I talked to some of my assistant coaches, and you're almost like desensitized to it now, because it's just been, so much going on, and all the stuff that he does is amazing. And you're just like, oh, that's just Grant. Looking back at it is like, yeah, this is pretty special. We should definitely lock these memories in.
Was there one game or moment that just made your, not jaw drop, you're like, I've not seen that before? Was there one that comes to mind?
He had, when we played Fargo South at home his senior year, they had a couple really good big athletes that could kind of meet him at the rim. And there was a couple dunks that Grant put on those guys that was like, holy cow. I think he had a putback dunk where he like reached back behind his head, and I'm like, how did your arm stretch out that far? And it was just kind of like, I just looked back at the bench and just kind of like, whoa, okay. And then the other one that sticks out to me is the state or the EDC tournament game against West Fargo. Really good West Fargo team, and I think Grant scored like 38 points and 20 some rebounds, and he just kind of did it from everywhere. He was hitting step back threes, things like that, and it was just kind of like, this guy's special. He's going to do really good things. Like, he just has it. He just has that it factor, and those are the games where I'm just like, this is kind of like my moment where I make that connection.
See, it's funny you say that. We got to go here, but that game, I looked directly to the game at the Summer League tournament at the beginning of March against South Dakota State, where he had 20 some odd points and 24 rebounds, and he did everything, and you're like, am I really watching this happen? He was unstoppable that night. Same thing.
He never ceases to amaze me.
No, it's unbelievable, man. It's great to catch up. I'm so glad you took my call, because now if the NBA's calling, I want you to big time me in the next couple months. So if we want to do this again, I can call you now.
Absolutely. I already talked to Grant, tried to be his trainer, and he turned me down. So we're good. You can keep calling me.
It's great to see you, man. Thanks so much for the time. We'll talk again soon, okay?
Thanks for having me, Dom.
There he is, Derek Gathman, former Devils Lake boys basketball coach, Grant Nelson's high school coach, and just fun to look back, fun to look at that video. That video's not that old, folks. That's 2020, 2019, and now we're on the doorstep of something really, really cool happening. We'll take our final break. We'll get you ready for a great Minnesota sports night. We'll do that when we wrap the show on a rainy Wednesday morning. I got that for being a Heisman Trophy vote, by the way. We'll wrap the show right after this.
The Dragons Digital Network is here to bring you live coverage of all MSUM Dragons home events everywhere you want to watch. DDN combines all streaming options of the MSUM Dragons, NSIC Network, WDAY, and in Forum. All the games, all live on social media, smart TV apps, mobile apps, websites, and more. So however you like to watch, the Dragons are there on the Dragons Digital Network.
Live has a new co-host.
Wow.
Mark Consuelos. Thursday, Schmigadoons, Jane Krakowski, and Go Green Bargains. Plus, Kelly and Mark attempt to break a world record.
I do find this therapeutic to discuss these things.
In the safety of this room?
I do feel safer. Oh, I do feel safer.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on WDAY, WDAZ.
I believe people hesitate about getting an estate plan because they just don't know what it is. They're just scared to talk about death. They're scared that they can't afford it. They're scared that I don't think I need a trust. I believe that's something that we help people calm their fears about when at the first meeting, that first consultation.
A law firm known for success. O'Keefe, O'Brien, Leeson Attorneys.
I've been a GH fan my entire life.
I love the TAM fam.
I still think about the time I was at Port Charles. I don't believe it.
But you can believe our shows are on back to back.
GH fans and the TAM fam love a good story.
Weekdays at 1 p.m. and 2 p.m.
I've been doing this for a long time. Somebody has to stand up for victims.
Detective Stabler, my partner, Detective Benson.
The world is changing. It took a lot of courage to get up on that stand. There's no stigma in coming forward. Please help me stop him.
He's not gonna ever be able to hurt you again. I promise you, I'll protect you. I'm not gonna stop until we find this guy.
Weekdays at 12 p.m.
In this job, you take your eye off it for 1 second. People can die.
Go now!
Don't think, just do it.
We're gonna get her out.
Here we go.
Hey, slow breath.
I'm a firefighter, and I will always be a firefighter.
Did a great thing today.
It's all because of you.
Weekdays at 7 p.m. and 12:05 a.m.
We don't have time for this.
Insanity.
911, what's your emergency?
What would you give for a child you loved to make their wish come true? To help them fight a critical illness? Just imagine what you'd do. You see, wishes are so powerful, and you can make them real. they can give a child back their childhood, even change the way they feel. Every single one of us can make the stars align, because when we come together, hope and joy will shine.
Fun show here today. Already at the back end. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Kindred standout three-time champion golfer Avery Bartels will join us for her commitment to play golf for the Bison. Big deal there for the pride of Kindred, who's been a dynamite golfer. We had her on this past fall when she won the state championship and now has made her commitment to play golf for Matt Johnson's Bison golf team. We'll do that coming up on the show tomorrow. Also, we'll be a week out from the draft. We'll start really ramping up our preparation for that, anticipation of our 4th annual mock draft, which will be next Thursday, the day of the draft, which, of course, you can see live on WDAY. Email comes in off of our conversation of the last North Dakota NBA draft pick, 1970 Grand Forks Central graduate Glenn Hansen, 1975 NBA second-round pick number 31, played at Utah State and LSU. Wikipedia bio states he was born in Devil's Lake. The 1970 Grand Forks Central team were the Class A champions. Thanks for the email on the fact check on that. That just goes to show you again with the basketball lineage in the state, first off. And second, just we don't know. It just hasn't been a whole lot there. And we're going to excavate a lot of that, I imagine, between now and the end of June to figure out exactly the past of NBA players here and what is potentially on tap. And I'll reiterate this, and I've been wrong many a time before. I think we have seen Grant play his last game for the Bison. I think I could say that pretty succinctly. And I don't think the portal is an option either. I think it's all NBA. It's all for professional hoops here. It's NBA or go home. I may be wrong on that, but that's what my gut is telling me here on the 19th of April. Tomorrow we're going to set some more time aside on the Bison football portal and players leaving storyline, because I know I got a tweet, and we mentioned this earlier in the show about I got a tweet about, well, how many players have the Jacks lost? How many players, and I just think it's not, fans can feel however they want. I think going down that road and comparing apples and oranges on that is unwise. SDSU just got its title. The Hawks, the Vultures will come in soon enough, Bison fans. And again, I'll reiterate on this, but more than half of these guys that have gone in haven't found another spot. Now, Tony Pierce tweeted out a couple of offers right away that he got as soon as his name went in the portal. And again, I'll ask you to be as subjective as possible. Are they better than what NDSU is? I can tell you, Marquis Siegel landed in a better spot. He's at a Power 5 school. I don't know about the rest of them, if it's better than the spot that they were currently in. And heck, some of them don't have anywhere right now, aren't playing at all. You see that more often than not, and it's scary, and the numbers hopefully are going to start getting back to people that this is not maybe a wise option to do. More on that coming up tomorrow. Let's get you ready for what to watch before we get out of here on this Wednesday. As I mentioned, you got the Minnesota trifecta today. The Twins coming up at 6 o'clock against the Red Sox. Joe Ryan starts today. That's on Bally Sports North. The Wild take on the Stars. Game 2 of the best of 7. Minnesota with a double overtime win on Monday. 8:30, probably 8:50, just so your planning purposes, 8:50 start tonight on ESPN2. And it's game 2 between the Timberwolves and the Nuggets. It says 9 o'clock. I plan probably for 9:10, 9:15 tonight on TNT as the Wolves try to even that series at a game apiece. Thanks to Dick Bremer, Drew Trafton, and Derek Gathman for joining us. Hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to do it all over again here tomorrow. You can podcast our show if you missed it as well at Inforum.com. Have a great Wednesday, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow on Hot Mic on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
Watch NDSU Spring Football on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com. Watch the Bison take the field at the Nodec Insurance Football Performance Complex, Saturday at 2:30 p.m. on WDAY Extra and Inforum.com.
When you watch First News, you're getting local news from a local team that understands and cares about your community. We're here for you with the most up-to-date news and weather to start your day. Because your community is our community.
Send your weather-related photos or video to the WDAY Storm Tracker team. Contact weather@WDAY.com or share them with us on Facebook and Instagram. Keeping an eye on the sky. The WDAY Storm Tracker team.
Every crime scene has secrets.
Every victim has an untold story.
And within every mystery lies the truth.
Our job is to find it. The original true crime series, Dateline.
Weekdays at 1 p.m.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 in the morning, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. He asked all his therapists to help him undertake some of the house chores. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey.
Happy Wednesday. I look outside in Detroit Lakes and it is just gloomy. We have cloudy skies throughout much of the area as rain and snow is moving through the region. Depending on where you are seeing either or have already seen that so far this morning. And we're not done, unfortunately, with the snow. We're tracking more snow throughout the day tomorrow and then for all of us as we go into Friday afternoon and the weekend forecast. Once this system gets on out of here, how does the rest of the forecast look? We'll talk about it coming up on WDAY News at 11. That starts right now.